Close your eyes for a moment and imagine this: an ordinary day, an ordinary person, and a choice that would change everything. This is their story. Listen closely. The world of football is full of superstars, players who drive luxury cars, live in enormous mansions, and spend their lives in the spotlight. But this story is different because it's the story of a man who never chased fame, a man who spent years driving an old Mini Cooper, who remained humble even after becoming one of the greatest midfielders in football history. His name is N'Golo Kante, World Cup winner, Champions League winner, Premier League champion, a player respected by teammates, opponents, and fans all around the world. But none of that seemed possible when he was a child. N'Golo Kante was born on March 29, 1991. His parents had emigrated from Mali to France in search of a better life. The family lived in modest conditions on the outskirts of Paris. Money was always tight. Every euro mattered. As a young boy, N'Golo helped support his family however he could. He collected recyclable waste, worked hard, and learned an important lesson very early in life: nothing would be given to him. Then tragedy struck. When N'Golo was just 11 years old, his father passed away. For many children, a loss like that can change everything. Suddenly the future feels uncertain. Dreams begin to fade. But N'Golo responded differently. Instead of giving up, he worked harder. Football became more than a game. It became hope. There was only one problem: nobody believed he could make it. He was small, very small. Compared to other young players, he lacked size, he lacked strength, and according to many coaches, he lacked potential. Academies passed on him, scouts ignored him, opportunities disappeared, again and again and again. Most players would have quit. N'Golo Kante never did. Because while others saw a boy who was too small, he saw a future they couldn't imagine. And soon, that belief would begin to change everything. Most young footballers dream of being discovered. A scout notices them, a big academy signs them, and their journey begins. For N'Golo Kante, it never happened that way. While other talented players were being recruited by France's biggest academies, Kante remained invisible. Week after week, month after month, year after year, no headlines, no media attention, no promises, just football. He continued playing for the small club Boulogne, far away from the spotlight. The facilities weren't glamorous, the crowds were small, and very few people believed that any player from there would reach the top. But every training session, every sprint, every tackle was another step forward. Kante had developed a mindset that would define his entire career. If nobody believed in him, he would simply work harder. Eventually somebody noticed, not because he scored spectacular goals, not because he was physically dominant, but because he never stopped running. At 19 years old, Kante received an opportunity with Caen. For the first time in his life, the professional game was within reach. This was the moment he had spent years waiting for, and he wasn't going to waste it. At Caen, coaches immediately noticed something unusual. Kante trained harder than everyone else. When practice ended, he kept working. When teammates rested, he kept improving. Every day was another opportunity to prove people wrong. Then came the matches, and suddenly, the same qualities people once ignored became impossible to miss. His energy, his intelligence, his relentless determination. Kante wasn't the biggest player on the field, but he seemed to be everywhere. One minute he was winning possession. The next minute he was supporting the attack. Then somehow, he was already back defending again. Opponents couldn't understand it. Coaches couldn't explain it. Fans couldn't believe it. But results don't lie. Season after season, Kante improved. Caen earned promotion to League One, and suddenly, the football world started paying attention. Not because he was flashy, not because he was famous, not because he demanded attention, but because he was becoming impossible to ignore. Then, in the summer of 2015, a struggling English club made a decision that would change football history. Leicester City needed reinforcements. They needed a fighter, someone willing to do the dirty work. And so, they signed N'Golo Kante for £6 million. Almost nobody noticed, but within a year, the entire world would know his name. The summer of 2015, Leicester City had just survived relegation. Barely. The previous season had been a nightmare. For months, Leicester sat at the bottom of the Premier League table. Most people expected them to go down. Instead, they pulled off a miraculous escape. But survival wasn't enough. The club needed something more. They needed players who were willing to fight for every ball. That's when N'Golo Kante arrived. No fanfare, no headlines, no superstar reputation. Just a quiet midfielder from France. Signed for £6 million. At first, nobody expected much. Then the season started, and suddenly, something felt different. Everywhere the ball went, Kanté seemed to be there first. An opponent breaks forward. Kanté wins the ball. A dangerous attack begins. Kanté intercepts the pass. A counterattack develops. Kanté starts it. Again, and again, and again. It almost didn't seem possible. Fans began joking that there were two N'Golo Kantés on the field. Some said he had 3 lungs. Others claimed he could cover the entire pitch by himself. But behind the jokes, there was truth. Week after week, Kanté produced numbers that were almost impossible to believe. More tackles, more interceptions, more recoveries than nearly anyone else in the Premier League. And as Kanté dominated midfield, Leicester kept winning. They beat teams they weren't supposed to beat. They frustrated teams with bigger budgets. They shocked teams filled with superstars. Chelsea, Manchester City, Tottenham, Liverpool, one by one. The Giants fell. Still, people refused to believe. Every week, experts said Leicester would collapse. Every week, Leicester proved them wrong. As winter turned into spring, the impossible became realistic. Leicester City were top of the Premier League, and the pressure was enormous. One mistake could end the dream. But Kanté never changed. He ran, he tackled, he fought every single game. Then came May 2016, the moment nobody thought they would ever see. Leicester City, champions of England. A club that had nearly been relegated, a club with 5,000 to 1 odds, had completed the greatest underdog story in football history. And at the center of it all was the player nobody wanted, N'Golo Kante. The boy who was too small, too weak, too ordinary, was now a Premier League champion. But the story was only beginning, because after conquering England once, Kante was about to do something even more unbelievable. Most football fairy tales end after the miracle. A small team achieves the impossible. A player enjoys one magical season, and eventually, everything returns to normal. But N'Golo Kante was different, because what happened next proved that Leicester's title was no accident. In the summer of 2016, Chelsea came calling. One of England's biggest clubs, a club built to win trophies, a club filled with stars. For many players, the pressure would have been overwhelming. For Kante, it was simply another challenge, another opportunity to work. The expectations were enormous. People wondered whether he could repeat what he had done at Leicester. After all, fairy tales aren't supposed to happen twice. Then the season began. And once again, Kante was everywhere. Every tackle, every interception, every recovery run, the same relentless energy, the same tireless determination, the same N'Golo Kante. By the end of the season, Chelsea were champions, again. Kante had done something almost nobody thought possible. He had won back-to-back Premier League titles, with 2 different clubs. The miracle wasn't Leicester. The miracle was Kante. But football still had one more mountain left for him to climb: the World Cup. In 2018, France arrived in Russia with enormous expectations. The squad was filled with talent, young stars, world-class attackers, future legends. Yet behind all the headlines, there was one player doing the work nobody noticed: N'Golo Kante. While others scored goals, he protected the team. While others celebrated in front of cameras, he quietly controlled the midfield. Every successful team needs balance. and Kante became the foundation that allowed France's stars to shine. Match after match, he delivered, winning possession, breaking up attacks, covering impossible amounts of ground, doing everything necessary to help his country win. Then came the final, France versus Croatia, 90 minutes away from football immortality. When the final whistle blew, France were champions of the world. The little boy who had been ignored, rejected, overlooked, was now a World Cup winner. He had conquered England, now he had conquered the world. And yet, something remarkable remained unchanged. The fame, the money, the trophies, none of it changed who he was. Because while football had transformed N'Golo Kante into a global superstar, he never stopped being the humble kid from Paris. And that might be the most extraordinary achievement of all. By now, N'Golo Kante had won almost everything. Premier League titles, a World Cup, European trophies, the kind of career most footballers can only dream about. But what made Kante special was never the trophies. It was the man behind them. Because while success changes many people, it never seemed to change him. In a sport filled with luxury cars, designer clothes, and extravagant lifestyles, Kante remained remarkably simple. Even after earning millions, he continued driving his old Mini Cooper, not because he couldn't afford something else, because he didn't feel the need to. To him, if something still worked, why replace it? That mindset became a symbol, a reminder that success doesn't have to change who you are. Then there was a story that perfectly captured who Kante really was. One evening, after a match in London, his car broke down. A Chelsea fan recognized him. They started talking. The fan eventually invited him home for dinner. Most global superstars would politely decline. Kante accepted. They shared a meal, watched football, played FIFA together. Just a football fan, and one of the most famous players in the world, spending the evening like old friends. Stories like that followed him everywhere. Fans spoke about his kindness, his patience, his respect for everyone he met. And perhaps the most remarkable part, none of it seemed intentional. He wasn't trying to create an image. He wasn't trying to impress anyone. That was simply who he was. Then came 2020. The COVID-19 pandemic changed the world. Football stopped. Communities struggled. Families suffered. Many athletes stepped forward to help. Kante did too. But in typical Kante fashion, he did it quietly. No headlines, no publicity campaign, no need for recognition. He helped because people needed help. Nothing more, nothing less. Then came another unforgettable night, May 2021, the UEFA Champions League final. For years, it had been the one trophy missing from his collection. And once again, when the stakes were highest, Kante delivered, dominating the midfield, winning possession, driving his team forward. Chelsea became champions of Europe, another trophy.